Hello, hello, hello. I, yeah, so I believe somebody's joined. Uh, could you just drop a message in the chat if you've joined so that I know? Hello, is somebody there? Oh, hi, Peter. So, yeah, we'll get started right away. And these are just some of the points that I want to cover so that you have an idea what basically liquidity providing is and how to, you know, provide liquidity on Meteora especially. So first talking about liquidity providing, basically when somebody's, so for example, if I open up Jupiter and suppose if I want to make a trade and I want to swap some Sol into USDC, then this trade is being facilitated by a liquidity pool. And if we input a value, let's say I put in half, so this is actually showing me all the pools through which this swap would be going through. So this swap would be going through the Lifinity and the stable swap pool. So when this swap is done, a percentage of your total transaction amount is charged by the liquidity pool, which is divided to the liquidity providers, the people who've basically put in money in that pool. So that is basically what liquidity providing is and how you're earning from it. Basically, it's the fees that you get from the transactions that are made on all the swaps. So, if, for example, if in this case, if you have liquidity on the Solfi platform, then this swap would be going through entirely that liquidity pool, and the fees would be earned solely by the people in that liquidity pool. But if it's going through multiple pools, then that fees is also divided into multiple pools, and as per wherever whatever amount is swapped. So that is basically how liquidity providing works. And the most simple and the basic uh, type of pools that wherein you provide liquidities are the automated market maker pools. So these pools follow a curve of provide a curve upon which the liquidity is provided. So basically what's happening is the liquidity is present at all points, at all price points. So but please excuse me, this I'm just setting up this entire stream and this was done very quickly, so I might be looking for the resources with you, but I'll try that I have all of this information beforehand so that I don't have to show you all the search results and everything. So if we talk about an AMM pool, yeah, so this is the standard. If when you're providing liquidity in an AMM pool, this curve is basically the price action of the token. So the token price will always follow this curve. But another thing that you need to understand what's happening in liquidity AMM pools is, yes. So in an AMM pool, when you're providing liquidity from zero till the infinite price point. So, for example, if we talk about Solana, where the Solana price does not, is not volatile between zero and infinity. I mean, technically it is, but usually the price would vary between, let's say 50 $100 over, if you're looking over a large period of time with volatility. But otherwise it's usually like $5 to $10 you up and down on a daily basis. So when we're providing liquidity in an AMM pool, most of our liquidity is actually left unutilized. Only a small portion of our liquidity. So if you're providing, let's say $100 amount of liquidity, only a very small amount of that liquidity would be actually active and making you money through the fees, because it is uniformly distributed at all price points. Whereas in a concentrated liquidity pool, this the liquidity that you're providing is being provided in a fixed range. So for example, we can say that from the current price point, a -10 to a +10% of range. And that is basically how the CLMM pools work. So in this pool, or compared to an AMM pool, a lot of the liquidity that was being left unutilized is being utilized. Although even in this pool, when we say -10 to +10, okay, so this is somewhat of a narrow range for crypto tokens. But let's say if we talk about -50 to +50%, and if you're providing liquidity over time, you will obviously try to provide it over a wider range rather than a narrow range. Because if you're providing it over a very narrow range, for example -5 to +5%, then you would have to actively manage it, because it'll go out of range, and then you'll have to come back and rebalance your position to keep earning liquidity fees. So if you do not want to actively manage it and want to leave it over a period of time, then you would obviously choose a slightly wider range. So when we are selecting that slightly wider range, even in that range, if we look at it, although most of our liquidity is concentrated around the active price, but still as the price starts to move, then lesser and lesser amount of liquidity is actually active for us. Which again, although yes, the CLMM pools are much more efficient compared to AMM pools, but even in CLMM pools, a lot of the liquidity is left unutilized. And that is a major problem in providing liquidity, because you're basically exposing yourself to a lot of volatile risk, and at the same time a lot of that value that you're providing is left being unutilized, which is where the DLMM pools, the dynamic pools that Meteora has created. And although I would like to point out that DLMM pools are not a unique or a innovation by Meteora themselves. It is actually inspired by the Traders Joe trade book that is basically present on AVAX. And if I remember correctly, Traders Joe has already made a very huge partnership with Monad. So I'm expecting Traders Joe's Monad DEX to be one of the biggest DEXs on Monad. So anyways, moving on. I hope I am able to clarify what the difference between an AMM pool and a CLMM pools is. We'll get into the DLMM pools in just a bit. Just some acknowledgement in the chat would be nice to say that, people have followed. Yeah, so now actually, even before I start with what Meteora DLMM pools are, I would like to introduce you to all the other aspects of the platform that are very useful as well. So if I would like to start with the Meteora vaults, which basically is the heart of the entire platform, and you'll understand in just a bit why this is basically the core of the entire platform. So what Meteora vaults are basically vaults wherein you can deposit a single token, and these tokens are then automatically lent out on platforms on Camino and on MarginFi and on SolLend. So these are the three major lending platforms in Solana. So when you're depositing USDC into a Meteora vault, the vault automatically allocates those funds into over the different platforms. And the algorithm that is being used, it does it in a way that it gives you the most optimal yield at all times. So this and the way they do is they basically rebalance the token distribution across all lending platforms every few seconds. So earlier it used to be every 2 minutes, but recently they updated their smart contract or the algorithm. I'm not sure on the technicals, but they updated it, and now it is being done every few seconds. So the capital that you put in into a Meteora vault, it is being optimized every few seconds across all three major lending platforms. And now, so let's talk about the dynamic pools, not the DLMM pools, the dynamic pools. So these are basically okay. So the dynamic pools are basically the pools wherein these are not these are dynamic AMM pools, the pools wherein you're providing liquidity from zero to infinity. These pools are exactly that, but they have a dynamic aspect to it in a way that a lot of your liquidity in these pools is being used in an optimal way, in a way such that we saw that in an AMM pool, most of the liquidity is basically always out of range and never active. So what Meteora basically did is that it took all of that inactive liquidity and it puts it into the Meteora vaults, the vaults that we just spoke about. And therein, those vaults distribute it over the different lending platforms, getting yield from there. So basically, whichever, if we look at the vaults, USDC, USDT, Sol, ST Sol, M Sol, and UXT. So these are the vaults that are present here, and whichever token pair has any token which has a vault. So for example, this pair has for this pair, Meta V, there is no vault for Meta V, but there is a vault for Sol. So whatever liquidity you're providing as Sol, which is not being used as active liquidity, is being lent out and getting you yield from there. Similarly, in the case of Sol M Sol pool, both these tokens have vaults. So both these tokens, most of the unutilized liquidity is being lent out on other platforms, and then you're getting extra yield from those platforms, as well as your active liquidity that is making you liquidity rewards. So if, for example, if we open up this and we just look at this, some of these statistics, so you see here this 24-hour yield, this $963 that we see here. So this 24-hour yield is actually the yield that is coming through lending and not through liquidity providing. And this 24-hour fees is the fees that you're getting from liquidity providing. So you can already see that lending is actually making more money, because since this is a stable token pair, both are pegged both, I mean, not both are pegged, and msol is basically pegged to sol. So even when the swaps are happening, the fees that you make are very small. So for example, if you see the swap fees that you make are basically 0.01%. So these are very small. And if you had just let put liquidity in a sol msol pair on any other platform, you would have probably made just this fees. I'm sorry, just this fees. Whereas on Meteora, you're getting an additional yield which is being generated through lending. So basically, these are pools, and these pools are built on top of a layer of liquidity, which basically are the vaults. Which is why I said that basically the vaults are the core of this entire platform. So and then again, there are always some pools that have extra farms. Basically, if you're providing into, so for example, if you're providing liquidity into sol vsol token pair, then you also have a pool. So you'll get about 2% is the liquidity that is the yield that you're making yearly for providing liquidity, and additional, you're getting additional rewards. Basically, these rewards are coming from farming. So when you add liquidity into this pool, then in exchange you'll get LP tokens. You can take those LP tokens and deposit those LP tokens into this farm here. And as you can see, there are 2 million points being distributed each week. And you can see I already have a position in this. I'm accumulating points, and then those points are basically for the Vault Finance airdrop. Although dollar value not much, but still. Plus I'm also making yield. So that's how these pools and the farms work. These LST pools are basically all the pegged token pools, and these multi-token pools are basically where you can deposit more than 2 tokens in a pool. And so I am not sure which one, but some of these pools are basically the pools that are being used to provide liquidity for wormhole bridge transactions. Now coming to the main the topic that we wanted to discuss, the DLMM pools. So we saw how liquidity is provided on a curve in CLMM and AMM pools, right? Now the thing is, there is another way of providing liquidity, and that is basically, for right now, let's not get into what these bin steps are. We'll just get to them in just a bit. But there's another way of providing liquidity which is which uses bins, and we'll just look into what that is. So I'll just input any amount. So you can see here, these are the bins, and what is basically happening here is, instead of providing liquidity on a curve price, which is basically a continuous price model, here liquidity is provided on fixed price points. So for example, in this bin, the price for Solana is 186.14. So in this bin, all the swaps that will happen with at zero slippage at the price of 186.14. Usually when we're following that curve model, there's a continuous price model, which means there is a continuous slippage. Now using this method reduces that slippage, although it does not eliminate that slippage completely, but it reduces it by a lot. So when the swaps, basically all the liquidity in this bin has been exhausted, and the price moves either either it goes down or it goes up. As if it goes down, then we basically will go out of range if we're considering the first bin. But for example, in this, if we talk about this pool and the price goes down, this, all the Solana in this bin will basically be sold, sorry, all the USDC in this bin will be sold, and Solana would, it would be replenished with Solana, and the price will move on to the next bin. So, and then until all the Solana is exhausted at this price, we will stay in this bin. As you can see, the price is continuously moving. This is because we've selected a 4 bin step. Now this means it's a very small range. As you can see, this is 1.5% to minus 1.3%. Now if I go to a slightly larger bin, let's say 80 bins, then this movement will not be as fast, because then the price is not moving across these bins as fast. Basically, you're getting a set of 69 bins in a fixed price range. And what is happening is, if you increase the bin step, the range is widened. And then when we go from 4 to 80 bins, from 1.5 to minus 1.3, we go to 31% to minus 23%. Are people following me here? I hope I'm making sense. And I mean, at any point, if you have a question, you can always ask me. I do have an eye on the chat, so that, you know, I get some acknowledgement and I don't feel like, okay, nobody's listening. So basically what's happening is, as we increase the bin steps, we are widening the range. Although no matter how wide or narrow the range we select, the number of bins that we get in that range will always remain 69. So if you count the total number of bins here, it's 69 bins. So basically you also have the option to customize, as in you can, like, for example, if I toggle off this autofill and I say 0, then it goes from 0 to 71%. At the same time, if I make sol 0 and put 100 USDC, it gives me a range of minus 40%. The entire range will always remain the same, but you can customize it as per you feel you want to provide liquidity in whatever range you choose. And it's very this method is very customizable, which I'll show you in just a minute. Because there are basically 3 ways in which you can add your liquidity on Meteora, and these 3 ways are plenty to create your own strategies at all kinds of various price points. So the first method is the spot method. This is the most basic method, wherein when I put in $100 liquidity into this pool, it'll be divided equally across all 69 bins. If you see, at all bins, we have firstly the price is 110, and then we also have in this bin we have $1.44 from our liquidity if we add $100. Similarly, even in this, the price increased because Solana price will increase as we go from left to right, but the liquidity that we have provided in this bin is also 1.44. Similarly, for all the bins, the liquidity is the same. And if you add 1.44 into multiply 1.4493 into 69, it will come to $100. And then there is the curve method. Basically what's happening is, in this method your liquidity towards the higher end is much more, and your liquidity, okay, no, that is not correct. Let me, yes, in curve method, your liquidity is concentrated at the current price. So as you move away from the price in any direction, the liquidity you have provided decreases. So if you see, in this bin we are providing $5.25, and in this bin 5.1, and then as we go to our left, the liquidity decreases. Similarly, as we go to our right, the liquidity decreases. And then the third option is the bid ask. In this is basically a DCA on both sides. Basically, as you move right or left, the liquidity being provided increases. So if the price is falling, then at the active price, you won't have much active liquidity, and you'll end up buying less of the token which is decreasing in value. But as we move away from the active price point, you'll be buying more and more. And similarly, as we move to the right, you'll be selling more and more. So you'll be selling less here and more here. So using these three, basically mixing all these three ways of providing liquidity, you can create your custom strategy. And let me just show you how to do that. So for example, at any point, if you want to refresh all the ranges, you just click anywhere else on the platform and come back, it'll refresh for you. So first let me just swap some, I'll say 0.32, actually I'll put 0.25. And now I have both some Sol and some USDC. Whenever you want to refresh, there's this refresh button here, and your wallet balance is refresh. Very handy. Like as you start using the platform more and more, you realize super handy feature. And so now basically what I'll do is I'll take half of my USDC and use it as spot. And if I can let I can deposit it in a balanced way if I want to, or if let's suppose I say that I want to put less of Solana. So you see there the Solana tokens are basically these tokens. This is USDC, and since I reduced in basically relative to how much USDC we have, the size of the bins reduced. So in this case, I'll first go with uniform. Basically, whenever I'm adding liquidity to, let's suppose I want to add liquidity to this pool. So I always add at least 20 to 25% in the most basic spot strategy, because this provides a uniform layer so that you have liquidity across this entire price range. So now another thing that you need to keep in mind when you're adding liquidity on Meteora is that to add liquidity, you also need to you don't have to pay, but it's kind of a rent. So you have to pay a rent of 0.056 Sol. That's about $11 if we talk about today's price. And so yeah, it's quite a high fees, but this is a refundable fee. So whenever you close your position, this 0.05 Solana fees is refunded to you. But you also need to keep in mind that there is also an array fees. So for example, what is basically happening is that these bins are already created, as this is basically the liquidity in all these bins. not our liquidity, just the general liquidity. So you see people right now, if we look at this price, there is very small amount of liquidity available at the prices of 148 to 158 dollars, which makes sense. And you see there's a lot of concentration around these prices. So in this particular case, since all of these bins are already created, we do not have to pay any array fees. But for example, if you go and start to create your, and go to pool and start creating your own pool, then you will be adding those bins for the first time, right? Because those bins do not exist, because that pool does not exist. So when you're doing that, in that case there's an additional fees. So always keep in mind, when you're adding liquidity and it asks for a higher fees, it might be because the range in which you're adding liquidity, the bins have not been activated even once before. So you are basically paying the activation fees, and that activation fees tends to be quite high. Like you'll clearly notice there's something odd in this transaction. Always keep an eye on the transactions before clicking confirm. So coming back to, we'll go back to the 80 bin pool. So as you can see, the most of the liquidity is provided in these tighter bins, because Solana price does not fluctuate that much. But similarly, if you start looking at some of the meme pools, so if we talk about LMM, you see most of the liquidity is in the 100 and 125 range bin step, because it's a much more volatile token. So people are providing liquidity over a wider range. Although yes, there's also a lot of liquidity, because again the market cap has reached quite high, and now the token price will very likely stabilize a lot. So for Solana, yeah, we had chosen, we had gone with half as spot, and we'll add liquidity. Since all the bins also already exist, there'll be no bin fees. What the 0.5 sol fees will be refunded. And then now what I'll do is, I will suppose in this example, what I want is, if there's a crash and Solana price falls drastically overnight, then I want to take advantage of that, right? So I'll, in that particular case, if I'm expecting that the price will fall, I will choose the bid ask strategy. Let's say I go with max, right? So now this is the spot liquidity I've already provided, and this slightly the I feel you can all see the slightly different layer of liquidity. This is the new liquidity that I'm looking to add now. And when I add liquidity, both these liquidities will merge. So now this is basically the shape that I have finally got by depositing these amounts of liquidity. I've added $40 of Solana and 47 USDC. And as the price moves, I'll start making fees. Since this is an 80 bin step pool for Solana, I don't expect price to move much. And if you look here, the fees that is being charged is also 0.04, which means yeah. So this pool is basically making a 24-hour fee of 0.17%. So obviously $80, 0.17% of $80 would be like, I don't know, let's see. About 13 cents. So obviously this is not increasing or moving at all. But yeah, so basically that is how you customize. So now let me show you what had happened if I had not provided that base layer of spot, if I had just gone with bid ask. So you can currently see I have decent amount of liquidity in these price ranges, right? Now, for withdrawal also, let me show you. You can withdraw tokens very in whatever way you like. Like you can choose what bins you want to withdraw from. Like if I want to withdraw from just these bins and I don't want to touch anything else, I can do that. And not just that, I if I choose 50%, I'll withdraw only 50%, this much liquidity. And if I click withdraw, you'll see the basically this much liquidity will be subtracted from this shape. So this becomes my new shape now. And you can also choose if you want both tokens or single token. uh, Although I always open the show bins and then choose what liquidity I want to remove myself here, which is why choosing which token you want doesn't really matter, because if I'm selecting this area, then I cannot really, even if I choose Sol plus USDC, I will not get any USDC. I will only get Sol because I'm only removing Sol. So, or otherwise I can also just withdraw in close position, and in this case I get my rent that I paid back, I get the current balance, and whatever fees that I've generated I get that as well. And yeah, so for let me show you, and there you can also claim fees separately. So I have some pools that I've already opened some positions, and yeah, so let me show you what my current some of my current positions are, and I hope you understand what I'm trying to do, how I'm trying to manage my positions. So basically this is the AI pump token, wherein total I have $347, and out of that $272 is currently out of range. Right now I'm in loss right now, because if you see, the price is moved down, out and down. And what I basically done is, if I show you the chart, this is the 270, the range in which I've added $272, this here to here. And then I have a second position which is currently open, which is active right now, and this is a pure spot, nothing else. And the range where I've added this is basically this point to this point. So right now, since the price is here, all this liquidity is inactive. So what I'm basically doing is I'm trying to hedge for my losses and trying to make up for it in earning fees through liquidity pools. So what I'll firstly, the when I started providing liquidity, I started at literally this point, this second green candle here. This is where I started, and I've provided liquidity throughout this range. And if you see, I've already even claimed $100, and this token, I think I only provided liquidity like from here till about here, I think here, and then I wanted to go to sleep. And again, this is a 4 million token market cap token, so I did not want to sleep with an active liquid position. So I closed my position, and I was just slightly below break even in terms of free and fees and all the IL and everything. So I closed, and then this morning I opened this position, which was basically this position, this first one. So you see, right now what I did when this the price reached at somewhere here, I basically sold some of the tokens, because I had a feeling that this was not going to pump back to these levels very soon. So I just took those tokens and sold them, and That Solana is what I'm basically using on the price range, which is basically below this price, and which is this position, and this is a pure spot position. I hope I'm making some sense. And what I am hoping for, although yes, best case scenario would be for me right now would be if this starts going back up and goes back here, and then it can go anywhere. I don't care. I'll just exit. But most likely, what I'm still awake for the next 3-4 hours, so I'll be monitoring this. And most likely, what I want to see is I want this price to come down. I want my losses to increase further, and then from somewhere in this range I want the price to bounce back to at least here, because when the price reaches this point, what I will do is I will take this position that is currently inactive, take, because this is all in AI pump tokens right now. I'll take this entire position and I'll go here. This is about 66k tokens, right? So if I add 66k tokens here, and I'll add this in a bid ask. Right now the price is here, but if it goes down, the bid ask position would be created from somewhere here till here. So when the price rebounds and tries to approaches this point, I would be sold out of this token, and I can tell you I would end up with at least 20 to 25, if I'm lucky maybe even 30% profit, even though I've only provided liquidity all the way down. Basically I wanted this token to rebound from this point, but it, I just wasn't feeling it, so I took some of the liquidity that I had here, pulled that and placed it here, so that at least my liquidity is active and making me fees as well. And that fees, if you see, that's about 35% daily. This is for 24 hours. So if my current position stays active, like if the price stays within this range for the next 24 hours, I would have made 35% on this $74. And for most part of the day, since this position was the active position, this was already making about 71. So I think I have had this position active for about 6 to 8 hours. So if you divide 71 by 4 or 6, 4 or 3 is what basically I've already made on this amount. So I started, to give you an idea, right now my total is about 337 plus 100. I started with about $360 when I opened these positions. So even though the price is going down, I'm still in profit. I hope people are able to understand. Similarly, I also have a position open for LLM. Again, already made quite a amount, and so this a lot of it was also made yesterday, and that is showing here. But I basically started with $610, and I'm at the same point, and I know I've claimed about somewhere between $35 to $40 already. Basically what I do is I closed the second position for LLM that I had, but I add, when I claim these tokens, I don't do nothing with the Solana that I've claimed. But for example, let me just claim these tokens here. Confirm. So now I have $33 worth of LLM tokens that I've just claimed. Bid ask and add liquidity. So now when the price moves up, those tokens are also now active liquidity. So I'm compounding those fees as well. And I'm only compounding the non Solana tokens as fees. I do nothing with Solana. Solana is just, you know, rewards taken home. So, uh, like, we just claim, like, I think about 60 odd dollars in fees, and 33 go back into the pool. And again, LLM is, this is basically where you see I have no upper cap, because only the bottom price matters, because I started this position about somewhere around here, and the only idea was to provide liquidity as the price falls down. Like, if at that point LLM had pumped, then my liquidity would have remained inactive. I would not have made money, but I also would not have lost anything at all. Right now I am losing, so I want a pump, and this probably could be it. Like, but I still will give it, like, for, since this is grown to about $100 million, I am comfortable leaving it for the night, even if I have to do that to just make sure that, I get slightly better returns. And usually it might not go back to again 150 overnight, but you might wake up and it'll be at 110, and that'll be enough for me to have made very good profits. So basically what I'm doing is, I'm not looking to well, my entire meme strategy is through LPing only. I am not trading any meme at all. Yesterday I have traded LLM from a very low market cap to a very high one. I could have held and made much more profit, but the thing is, I have no idea what tokens will do what. I cannot predict the future. So instead I use this chart, and I just try to make fees on the LP. And when price is moving up, then obviously you will keep on changing your ranges and going up and up. But as the token price goes up and it goes out of your range, you're basically not only making fees from uh, LPing, but also making profit, because those bins basically act as your DCing out. You basically sell it through a DCA strategy. That's how I approach meme coins. Oh, now you just saw this big candle. Now this candle, again, the price has come back up, but this was a lot of volume, does nothing to the price, but this adds to our collection, because whoever made this transaction, somebody sold and bought a lot of tokens in very quick transaction. This is something that happens all the time in meme coins. Big transactions, buy and sell immediately. I still do not understand why they do it, but it happens every day, all the time. But that person would have still had to pay the fees on those transactions. And this is LLM, right? So right now, if we look at LLM pools, this is a pool that has a base fees of 2%, and as the volatility increases, this base fees also increases. So at this point in time, if you saw just a couple second back, this was 3.6. That's because of this volatile candle that we just saw, that it went up. But now again the price has stabilized, so the fees has started coming down. But as there is more volatility, the fees charged is increased. So when that person made that transaction, whenever you're making that transaction is actually distributed across a lot of pools. Like, a lot of Radium pools would also get a portion of that transaction. Some of Meteora pools will also get, and even in Meteora we have different pools with different bin steps, like we just saw. So for example, LM, if we talk about, there are all these pools available. So a lot of these pools are in play in such big transactions, and all of them making fees. But on the Meteora platform, you're making much more fees on those particular transactions, because the dynamic fees comes into play. And right now, your unutilized capital is not being used in vaults. But I think in December, the state of Meteora call that Ben did, he did point out that in the future, so for example, if we talk about this, my pool, and we look at this mood, we see that, if we actually look at it considering all the volatility, maybe, this much sol is enough to cover for that liquidity. This much sol, this portion of sol is still unutilized capital. So in the future, this unutilized capital will be going to dynamic worlds and getting us additional yields as well. So yeah, we've been going on for quite a while. I hope you've learned something. I've tried my level best, and I'll definitely, again, this was put up together very quickly on a whiff, really. Like, I was just talking to somebody in the Discord and they were telling me, and I had conversations with people earlier as well in the Discord channel, and people were not like, the feeling that I got was that people want to do it, but they have some sort of apprehension towards providing liquidity. But it's super easy. And yes, again, I've yapped on for quite a while, but I will be doing this session again sometime in the next week. I'll try to streamline a lot of things. I'll try to structure it much more cohesively, because today I felt there were some points wherein I feel like I was losing what I'm trying to convey. So I'll try to structure all of that, and because basically I feel like there's a lot more that I want to share with you, but I also do not want you to give me like 5-6 hours of your time in one go. So I'll just try to improve in the next session, and I think we'll call it a day. Although yes, if the people who are watching, if you have any questions, I would love to answer them. So Crypto Frame says, understandable, but sounds like a lot of work to maintain the position. So a lot of work, not really. So for example, you have to monitor it, but you don't have to work on it very regularly. So for example, if I talk about this position, I only actively did something 2 times in a day, but I do have this tab open and I do look at it every half hour, 45 minutes, just take a peek, see what's happening on the chart. And because I know I've set up the chart, this is a 5-minute chart, I know what I'm looking at. And if you'll just take a peek, doesn't take more than 5-10 seconds. And again, I did not even speak about what these bars are, but these bars are basically volume, help a lot in understanding where you want to place your liquidity. Like right now, although this has changed a lot, but when I had set up this range, I had looked at, like, if I were to open a position right now, I would probably place it so here I want to at least have this bar. This should be my minimum. Like I'll probably say, okay, this much volume, I'll let it go, but I'll try to cover this much. But then at the same time, I see that not really that strong a resistance level in this case, since the price is down. I'd probably keep it somewhere here. I'll miss out on this much of volume, but I'll keep it a slightly tighter because I don't expect it to jump up very high very quickly. Again, still a $4 million market cap token. Not a lot of people are talking about. So I would, if I am opening a position right now, I'd probably place my top of the range somewhere here, and my bottom, I won't change much to it. But if I were opening, and I would maybe probably bring it a bit lower, that ways I can use all the 69 bins available to me. Because if I can also choose this range, this also still looks very decent. But since I've reduced this range from the top, I will not be using 69 bins, I will be using lesser bins. And I try to use as many as possible rather than few. Although few basically means you're concentrating your liquidity into a tighter zone. And if you're concentrating your liquidity in a tighter zone, then I would just reduce my bin step rather than reduce the number of bins. I would keep the bins as 69, but I, instead of let's say 100 bin step, I would use a 80 bin step pool. So the difference between 80 and 100 would be very small, but still something slightly tighter. So if we look at 100 is basically minus 42, minus 28 to plus 40. 1. Why is it not showing? Yeah, so minus 28 to plus 40, and 80 bins would be slightly tighter, just 80 bins. 80 bins is 31% to minus 23. So minus 28 to plus 40 to minus 23 to 30. Slightly tighter, but uh, still using 69 bins. That's what I would do. But yeah, if you look at this position, I am myself, yes, I do have some fewer bin usage going on. Like in this position, I have, if I remember correctly, 41 bins are being used in this second, the active position. These are not 69, these are 49 bins, because I didn't see the price going that down. Like I don't expect it to go another minus 30% from here. So I'll call it a day for today, and we'll try to do we will do this session sometime over the weekend or next week, and I'll try to streamline a lot of things so that it's not as it slightly feels like I'm doing I slightly more finished is what I would say. And yeah, do like, oh, this is the first time I'm gonna say it. Do leave a like and subscribe to this channel. I never thought I would be saying this. Good night, goodbye.